Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. This is our Geico playoff show. The Washington team showed up. They played a little bit. We got a special show for you. Come on back and enjoy. Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. Now, one thing that happened and transpired this weekend, we found out that the Washington football team deserved to be in the playoffs. What did they do? They went there, they represented, and they also found maybe the quarterback of the future. Now, as we talk about that, what do you do on Tony McGee's show when you're doing that? You go in and bring some of the best people in the world. So first of all, as you know, we always bring in Gary Clark. That's the only guy that when it storms, he can handcuff lightning and throw thunder in jail. He's one of the guys that the room gets cool when he comes in. Then you got Doc Walker. Doc Walker been with me for 30 years. Everywhere I go in Washington, D.C., they say, talk about Doc Walker, talk about Doc Walker. Well, I don't know how many lives he's saved, but he is the MD of information for our show. But that's not good enough. When you bring in Doc Walker, he's kind of handicapped, so you have to bring somebody in to help him with the words and the crayons and do everything because football is not his big thing. He's good on television. So I go and bring a guy in that I look at Fox and I see this guy here and he's one of the great people on there doing a great job. But the thing about it, he's a Hall of Famer. Now he can help me with football and really help Doc with television. We bring in Howie Long. Hey, welcome to the show, Howie. But last but not least, to let y'all know that I am not just putting this down. We bring in a guy that's been with us when I first saw him, I thought he was a football player. I didn't know he was a Harvard, he's a basketball player, know everything. I said, wait a minute, hardest working man in the game right now. Tell me all I need to know. He's not just an announcer, he's my friend, James Brown. Welcome to the show, guys.
Good to be here, Tony. Hey, Tony, you giving Howie too much information when you said they thought I was a football player. Howie's got stories for days, but go ahead, Tony.
Last but not least, all of y'all was probably wondering, where is the Hopkins? Donna Hopkins. We bringing in Donna right now because for 20 years, this lady been on the show, the first female to be on the show that long, be a very good part, even though her information is wrong a lot, but she's been asking me for 10 to bring on one person, Howie Long. Donna, welcome to the show. Do you see your screen?
I see, Tony, finally you listened to me for once to bring on some knowledge.
You've been wrong all the other time. We didn't have time for that. But let's get going, guys. We're going to have a good time here. Now, let's talk about this Washington football team. Saw a lot of good things. Everyone talking about how great they are. I think they did a good job. They represented, they showed they was there, and it's showing that the coach, what he was thinking this year, is really what's applying. So I'll start with you, Doc. You've been watching them. What did you see with this team on Sunday?
Well, they showed up, and the most important thing was that they had been hindered by inconsistent quarterback play, and they solved that because Heineke came in and actually gave them a spark, and Howie knows this better than all of us, that those guys don't want to chase a rabbit. They want to go to a designated spot and knock a guy out. So we gave them that hope. And once his guys started catching the football for him, even without a running game, they were able to sustain themselves and not let Brady kill them early. So that was encouraging.
Well, you know what? Now let's look at this and not let Brady kill him. And one thing I did see, Howie, you know, you were one of the great defensive linemen of the game. And one thing I say, they keep telling us how great Washington's front four is. It looked as if in the beginning of the game, they could not get pressure on Brady.
Well, I think they understood the threat. And I think, listen, the biggest question I had, and I think a lot of people had when when Tom signed down in Tampa Bay. I know Bruce from out here in Arizona. You look at quarterbacks that have played under Bruce, one thing they all have in common, they throw for a whole yards and they get hit a whole bunch of times. And I think one thing that, Doc will appreciate, and I certainly appreciated about the Washington offense back in the day, was it was always about play action. It was always about 6-7 in protection initially with late leakers coming out of whether it's a tight end, a running back, and they did that. And, the one thing about Chase, I think, is going to, when people told me he's better than Bosa, he's better than the first Bosa, he's better than the second Bosa. Here's where I think the Bosas have the edge on him. They have the edge on him from an understanding of how to rush the quarterback. If Chase has the last piece for Chase, and he'll get it, is how do I win rushes? Because if it becomes a foot race, let's say someone scrambles out, pocket breaks down, and they take off, Chase can run anything down with a heartbeat. And that is a unique talent. I think once he figures that out, he's going to be great. But what they did initially, I think Tampa Bay was smart. They had 6-7 in protection, particularly when they're going to take shots down the field. Because otherwise, I think Tom would have gotten hit and hit a lot.
Well, you know what? Now, JB, did you hear how Howie, now we've been wanting him for 20 years. He starts off the show talking about Doc, you would understand. He doesn't know Doc don't understand this kind of stuff. I mean,
well, Doc was the 6th, 7th guy in protection.
And you look at it. Well, you know what? I'm this messed up guy. Hold on, Gary, and hold on, James. Donna, you've been asking for years. You got Howie here. Let's see what you want to ask him.
Hey, Donna.
How you doing? And James, we got heavy hitters on today. Yeah. But Howie, when you look at this NFL in general, just the playoffs, the teams that's in there, and with the COVID situation and everything that's happening, what do you see as far as evolving now? And with a Cleveland that's beating Pittsburgh, you got some new faces in the NFL now. How do you just see the NFL from this point on evolving after we're coming out of the COVID situation?
Well, I think there are two different questions. One is the COVID situation, and it really, and it played out with the Washington football team with the young quarterback who, I think one thing he lacked maturity. And I think when you're talking about COVID, you're talking about a head coach who's coming off of his last treatment for cancer and the kind of responsibility you have as a player, as a coach on that football team to, at the very least, try to keep Ron Rivera healthy, but to have the respect enough to keep the rest of your teammates and coaches. And, some of the coaches are on the high end of the 50s and low 60s in terms of age. They're at risk. And I think he made a big mistake. And I think Ron Rivera made a huge statement about where the organization is going and the kind of impact the head coach has to have. And I think that was probably, one of the big question marks in the past was, how much power does the head coach have? How much power does the GM have? If the owner, who's not looking at film, who's not traveling to Oklahoma or, Texas or wherever the prospect is and looking at the prospect, he's just making a decision that he thinks is, maybe the right decision to make, but not informed. I think Ron Rivera answered all those questions. Where we're headed in terms of our game, I think it's become readily apparent that the quarterback, whether it's Lamar Jackson, who's, an extreme version of a quarterback that can, make you, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You had a stationary target in Washington. Alex Smith was a great story and, an inspiring story, as has been Ron Rivera's story. But Alex Smith you knew where Alex Smith was going to be. He was in a fixed spot, and that's an easy target. You've got so many, I think, great athletes in the defensive front now. They're bigger, stronger, faster. I think the blitz packages are more complex and they come with more frequency than ever before. You need a guy who can avoid, whether it's this kid out with the Chargers. Wow,
Yeah.
is he good? I mean, there's a boatload of young quarterbacks, and what we've done as a league, instead of saying we don't play the college game, it's now a blend of what we do in our league and what in college, and I think it's smart. I think it lends to presenting so many problems for defenses. On first down, you have to account for him as a runner. On third down, you have to watch where you're rushing. You flush him out to his right. And with guys like Mahomes, who flush out to his left, plants his foot, makes a throw to the corner of the end zone. I saw Josh Allen make the same throw 2 weeks ago. And initially when he made the throw, I'm like, who's he throwing that to? And here suddenly on the back end of the end zone, I think it was Diggs that came across the back of the end zone and made the catch. It's amazing. I think our quarterback, we have more quality quarterbacks in our league than ever before. That's the short answer.
Well, you know what, though? You think about it, and you're right. That is the short answer. You think about we do have the quarterbacks, but I need to ask you, G, when I look at that game, and we must talk about this Washington team just a little bit more right now, it wasn't all the quarterback. I just don't think they had a complement of receivers that could get the job done as well. Now, the young man, Heineke, he did a great job picking him out and using his legs. But let's go back to Haskins. He was not mature the way he should be. But at the same time, when his lead receiver got hurt, who I don't think was a great lead receiver anyway, I just don't think they had the complement of receivers. Am I correct on that, G, or am I wrong, like Donnie is about the defense and everything?
I'm never wrong about that, Tony.
Oh, come on now.
Well, I actually like the receivers. I do. I like both Sims and of course I love Terry. I mean, you got a guy who's gained 2,000 yards plus in 2 seasons. That's not bad, not at all. So I think
should have been named McLaren.
Yeah, Terry, yeah, right. Right. No, I get it, but I'm just really think a lot of it has to do with everything's a West Coast offense now. That, in my opinion, it hampers me as a receiver. I mean, because for him to be able to pick up those yards in a West Coast offense, that's just unbelievable because it's not vertical. It's no vertical. It's a horizontal game. It's not a vertical game. And he's a vertical receiver, quite honestly. And he's doing great things in a horizontal set.
JB.
When you have a revolving door of quarterbacks, think about they had 4 quarterback changes this year, from Haskins to Cal Allen, back to Haskins, then Alex Smith, then Heineken. How can the receivers really get a flow in with all of these changing parts and everything? And the fact that they never did get a running game going all season long. So there were some mishaps on offense, not just look at the receiving. Harmon is back next year as one of their top receivers. But I'm going to say that I think they still need to get a big-time receiver or another receiver in there to really open up, because I think Terry moving to the slot versus where he's at is going to make him even more productive. So I think once they get a quarterback in here that's going to be their future, they can really move forward in the right direction on the offense.
A quarterback in to make their future. That's what they were saying around there. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold that now. We have to pay a few bills right now, so keep that thought. We'll be back in a moment. JB, all these young quarterbacks around the league, do you think we have the individuals here that can really make this happen in the future? Does Heineke look like a person can get it done? Should they go out and try to get another young quarterback that's out there or draft one?
Hey, Tony, so one of the things I want to say, and I was blessed to learn this, not only from Bobby Mitchell, God bless him, when I knew nothing about the game and spent a bunch of time talking with him to understand the basics of the game, and one of Howie's biggest supporters, Coach John Madden, and certainly from Howie in the studio. My job is really not to comment on whether or not the guy has the ability. Look, what he did, wasn't he in classes not too long ago? What I'm really excited about is that the kid came in, and to me, even as an ex-athlete in basketball, I love the maturity that he showed, the calmness under pressure. He's a mobile quarterback. I think he certainly has the assets there, but whether or not he has what it takes to be a starting quarterback in the league, I would leave that to you guys. I asked Bill Cowher that, and he says, look, he's got the opportunity to become a solid backup with a long career around the NFL. And again, I would defer to you guys. And let me just tease about Donna when she talked about Howie and how long she wanted to have him on the show. Look, Howie, forever and a day, we call him Big Boy because he was no nonsense. But Tony, Gary, Donna, yeah, you too. And of course, Doc, everywhere we went in LA, Howie was the attraction. I don't care what hue, I don't care what hue they were. They wanted to know about Big Boy. But the thing I'll say is that as much as he was,
they never called that in my neighborhood, JB.
What they call it?
What was you? Is that a Harvard word?
Hey, look, this is what hey, Tony, this is what
I knew a guy named you back in the neighborhood, but I didn't.
I'm trying to be TV polite but the thing about Howard, look, as much of a big stud as he has been for all these years, to everyone here, the thing I loved about Howie is that he was fiercely protective of his family, loves his wife. Big Boy was about his job. So while the good Lord blessed him that way, I know when he was coming onto the show, he studied everything about the game. So I always wanted to make sure, Tony, if I was working with you guys, I understood what the storylines were and the right questions, just like what Kirk Menefee is doing to pull out the best from Howie. But I'm loving the fact that the league is in good hands with a great bevy of young, talented quarterbacks because the game has changed. And I hope that makes sense in terms of what I just
very much so. Doc, you know what? He brought your name up first, so you must have hit him in the back or something. But I know one thing, you had to go against Big Howie when he was out there. You was that man. Tell me a little bit about some of your battles.
Well, again, he's relentless, like all those guys were. And it really reminds me of the young Bulls we have right now. They're in that mold of him, but nobody can measure his intensity play after play after play. A lot of guys are good on third down defensive linemen, but this guy was good every down. And what happens is that they had layers, they had great corners, they had a whole unit, but it's a philosophy. And what Washington doesn't have right now offensively, in my mind, they don't have a core value system because they'd rather trick you than fight you. And until they become willing to fight, their line average is 330 pounds and they're in 2-point stances. I don't understand it. They don't put their hands in the dirt and attack people.
Exactly.
So it's about position and wall, and that dog is not going to hunt. The Cleveland Browns are a great example of it right now. When it came right down to it, they believe they can knock you off the ball, and with those backs they have, they're going to wear you down. Then that kid can go into play action, as we did with Joe T. It's the element of it. But if you don't ever establish the first part of it, to me, it just you got
to have one thing, and you mentioned it. At some point in the game, within the quarter, within the half, end of game, you have to have the ability to get in a 3-point stance, buckle your chin strap, and run the football. Now,
there you go.
Rarely do you have one like Chubb. And even more rarely do you have Chubb and Hunt.
There you go.
Listen, they were talking about that offensive line. And I got to tell you, I mean, I know they had a number of injuries last night. I'm looking at the offensive line. I'm not seeing Anthony Munoz. I'm not seeing, you name it. Dwight Stevenson. I'm not seeing that. I think the right tackle is a really good young player. I think they're solid across the board. But I think those running backs make a huge difference for that football team and for Baker Mayfield. If the play action game is working, you get free runners in the secondary. I'd love to play in the Rams scheme as a wide receiver. The Rams scheme or San Francisco scheme.
Yes.
I mean, if you've got the quarterback, like for example, those three coaches were all on Washington's staff. The guy in Green Bay, the guy with the Rams,
them all.
And the guy in San Francisco, okay? They all run the same offense. Now, one hit the lottery and went to Green Bay and got, Aaron Rodgers. And, Goff, I think, is a guy that is, if you're on schedule, he's fine. But if you're off schedule, if the play action doesn't work, if there's a protection breakdown, he has to throw off platform. The timing is off. I'm not a big fan. And I think they've got a decision to make in San Francisco too, at the quarterback position. He's missed 25 games, and that's a team that looks ready to maybe be a Super Bowl team, as do the Rams.
Well, you know what? If you take a look, though, and you look around the league, and not only just the young quarterback, you look at the teams, you look at the young defensive players. But one thing, let's back up and go to Washington. One thing that I did not see, and I think the thing that's hindering them in the future, and the reason I'm mentioning that, just as you guys said about Cleveland, Cleveland is going to be exceptionally tough in the playoff. They can run the ball. Right now, Howie, all of you guys know, this is the time to run the ball. So what I'm looking at right now, nobody's mentioned Washington's offensive line. Are they the best they could be as a group right now? Can they get better? Because no running game. That's what's the big key. Had they been able to run the ball and keep Brady off the field a little bit more on Sunday, I think they'd have had a better chance.
But Tony, the thing about it is it's not that they can't run the ball or the offensive line is the problem. It's that they don't commit long enough to run the ball. I mean, when you think about it, they start off and then they go away from the running game because they fall behind so quickly. But if they commit to a running game, because they've got the runners, I believe, that can create some damage. But my question also is, all season long, we've been talking about this Washington football team on both sides of the ball getting off to slow starts. How can you, for a whole season, get off for slow starts on both sides of the ball? What does that tell you a little bit about the team and the coaching when you can't get your team off to quicker starts on both sides of the ball? But I still think that they got the personnel to be able to run the ball. They just don't commit to it.
Gee, what about getting the quick start? You know, as offense, and you know, back there when you with Coach Gibbs, you guys always wanted to put some points up on the board early. You knew if the defense could hold them to 17. The reason I'm not asking Rick Walker this because he was over there on the bench with me when y'all were out there. So I'm gonna ask you this: fast start. They don't.
No, we had to deal
with
you on defense. That's why we went to Green Bay and lost the game, scoring 47 points. Because they had you on.
Hey, get it out. Get it out, man. Get it all out. Get it out. Let it go. Let it go.
You see what a defensive player said? Hey,
this is
we lost
cathartic.
our point. Y'all were supposed to score that point. We held them to 40.
I'm gonna give you a word just like you. I'm gonna say this is cathartic. I'm still laughing. You threw you out there.
You know what? But if you look around, and the one thing you do have to realize, and you look in the playoffs, and the one thing I'm going to just mention a team that's in the same area, the same almost zip code as the Washington team. I looked at the way the Ravens came about when they needed to. I know that they're dependent on their quarterback quite a bit, but I saw their offensive line who's lost 2 offensive starters, good players. I saw their defensive line that had not played well the last 4 or 5 weeks, but when they needed it, they came on. This is the thing I think Washington needs to look for, and I think Rivera is building that, but right now they don't have it. But when you look at this Ravens team, they're another team that's dangerous, but when I look at them, I think about Seattle. Everybody depending on Russell Wilson too much. Same thing, and do you guys, and I know I've jumped to you, but do you feel that same way with the Ravens?
First of all, I think just in general, I think the teams that win are teams that have great leadership, and it's never just the quarterback. I hate when people just think the quarterback leads the team because that's really not it. A lot of times it's about 7 or 8 other members of the team that are leaders on the team that get you going, that get you moving, that get you motivated, that brings you back when you need a spark. And right now, I mean, we're really giving accolades to Washington, and they lost. I'm never going to give accolades when I lose. What am I cheering at? We lost. I mean, can you find good things that happen within it? Yeah, but there was a lot more worse things that happened than good things. That's why you lost the football game to start with. So I think what we need to find is the leadership that allows you to draw upon this, that allows you to win the game in the 4th quarter, that allows you to, when you need to get to start off then. Because if I don't have leaders to fall back on, nobody knows. It's chaos. It's chaos and you lose, and everybody's okay with, going into playoffs, we won 4 games, 5 games. Come on now. We win the division. That's just No, it would have been great if we only won those games, then we came in and we won the playoff game.
I played with guys like him. They fight you over a game of checkers. That's the kind of guy you want in the room. And you talk about leadership. I think there's, and I think you'll probably echo this. Every room has a leader, and that leader. I'll give you an example. Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey goes out to LA. Everyone starts to dress like Jalen Ramsey. Everyone starts to look like Jalen Ramsey. Everyone starts to play like Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey is a willing participant in coming up on and I'm not just talking about, I don't throw this out with a lot of corners. Jalen Ramsey would come up and try to take your head off in the run game. That's impressive for a guy who can cover anything that has a heartbeat on the field. A tight end, your number one wide receiver, big, small, doesn't matter. I'm not sure that we've seen a guy like that in quite some time.
Hey, big boy, if I could comment on it in terms of back when I was working in Washington when Gary was playing, but I was also doing championship boxing for HBO. Gary reminds me of that old Richard Pryor story where the guy gets in the ring, he's looking across the ring at his opponent, and his opponent is beating up his own self. And the guy asked him, well, you expect me to go in here? Gary had no fear. So yeah, you're right. Leadership comes in all forms. And I'm really careful not to, again, big boy, from a big picture standpoint, looking at it, because I do understand leadership in all forms, whether it's on the football field, the athletic field, or in the corporate arena as well, too. You do need that one person. Look, I thought Ron Rivera did his best to see if he could salvage. And I'm not going to beat up on a young fella because I hope he learns from this and comes back to give it a shot. But Dwayne Haskins truly, as you guys said, lacked the maturity. It would be nice if it is in a quarterback for him to do all the things that Howie delineated from his head coach battling cancer. Look at the top. I think it always starts at the top. And with what's going on in Washington at the very top, you look at Alex Smith. I mean, I think he's a phenomenal story just getting back on the field, though I hope he retires after it. There's enough inspiration there. And I thought Ron Rivera did a superb job in trying to get the best out of him. But you guys know the Washington situation better than me. But in extensive conversations with Doc Walker especially, and certainly Ron, they gave this young man every opportunity to lead the pack, and it failed. But yet Ron Rivera at the right time still pulled the switch, got these guys back at it. And given that COVID and no preseason, the offseason was impacted, I think given the kind of challenges that coaches have had to deal with uniquely in this season, those teams that have persevered to this point, I think there ought to be a tip of the hat because those are the ones that have weathered the storm and got through it. Mm-hmm.
You know what? That was nice of you to mention Doc Walker.
Say that again, Gary.
You know what? We knew if you were talking to Doc Walker, you had to be writing down in crayons what you were talking about because he don't understand football. Doc, did you understand what he was saying? No, I'm just messing with
Hey, but Gary was about to coattail on that with Howie. Go ahead, Gary.
But I agree with you to a point, but I think as Howie, Doc, Tony, what we all know is right away, you see who can ball, big ball. You see it, you see it kind of like right away. You understand it, you see it, you recognize it. And as a coach, my job is to make the hard decision to decide who's going to play for me. Who am I going to put in that situation to play for me? So yes, I agree that you give your number one guy a chance. You give him a chance, but as a player, we go to MF you because we're coming out there to play to win. We're going to MF you if you're not playing the right guy.
You're taking
Which is exactly what they did with him. Go ahead, Howie.
You're taking a selfie.
Yep. How about that?
No. Let's just start there. Oh my God. I mean, really? I've seen fights on airplanes. I've seen fights in meeting rooms. I've seen guys get stuffed in their locker. I've seen fights at practice that would have people. I mean, in today's world, you'd be on 60 Minutes and they'd have you down as, I've done things that, my God, I hope never get out.
Thank you.
If a guy on my football team at the quarterback position, young, old, or anywhere in between, is on the sidelines taking a selfie and they can't find him to take a knee on the field in a win. And if my guy's walking in the locker room after a loss and saying, I threw for 300, I'll tell you something. I had 5 sacks versus the Washington Redskins. One of the worst games of my life. We lost. We lost.
There you go.
And I'll tell you the play we lost on. That's how it sits in your head.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the play we lost on. Backed up, second and long, screen pass to Joe Washington.
That's right. And we beat y'all in the final play of that game, which I had 3 sacks in that game too. Oh, you had 5, Howie? Wait a minute.
But here's the thing. Nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you lost.
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about us. And I know there are situations where, you know, pass rushers want this, and I love DK Metcalf and physically who he is and the player that he is, and I get it. These guys, it's all tied to big money. If I don't get enough catches, my next contract's not big, and we're talking about a lot of money. I played for $38,000 my rookie year. My check was $1,007 after taxes. I was driving a used Coupe de Ville in Oakland. I couldn't have been any higher in the world than I was in Oakland that back in 1981. But we're talking about a different kind of world they're living in now. So these wide receivers, I don't know where it started. Did it start with T.O.? I'm not sure where it started, but wide receivers became really angry. And you saw a little bit of that on the sideline.
Did they tell their coaches off in D.C. as well?
What's that?
Did they tell their coaches, did those receivers tell their coaches off in D.C. as well, the ones that were angry?
I don't think you're yelling. Here's my thought. If you respect your coach, and I had a great deal of respect for my defensive line coach, Earl Leggett, who I believe coached him. Did he coach in Washington? I'm not sure if he coached.
Yeah,
him.
he did. He did.
Yeah, I had a great deal of respect for him. I'm not sure you're yelling at Ron Rivera. I'm not sure you're yelling at Jack Del Rio. I'm not sure you're yelling at Joe Gibbs. I mean, there's certain people you respect enough not to do that. I understand the frustration. It's like if you're not the guy on third down as a defensive lineman, if you're going to have me bull rush and spy and drop in coverage, why am I here?
You know, that's a good point, but I got 2 points. We knew a guy that didn't mind hollering at the coaches, and that includes Joe Gibbs. And for all you fans, you hear us talking about Rick Walker, but we'd be playing because Rick Walker could ball. He was the first one. When they started the H-back, which a lot of you do not know what that means, he was the man, and that's the reason they started that. And he did not say that, Rick, is, yeah, you do get angry with your coach, and you look at different things. And one thing I remember in that Raiders game when we played Howie them, we were determined in that game. And I remember you and I talked on the sideline. We were going to run it, even though they had 8 up there in front. And we always felt like that was a mistake. So let's go back to that, because I'm still hurting on that game. And Howie.
Hey, Tony, right quick. Mike said that you got to take a break.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Doc. I got into this, and Howie, I hope you don't have to leave right after this. But if you do, hey man, it's
I'm good
having you on here.
I'm good. If I can help you get past some pain of your past life, I mean, you just let me know, because I've got my own pain.
You know, I like you coming on because you said a lot of things that I say, and you younger than I am. So I tell you what,
well, everybody's younger than you are.
Oh, well, I knew you were gonna come. Now I'm giving. First time I give you some credit.
I don't need no.
We're gonna take a break on here.
I need you to go to break, and then we come back. We gotta address the issue. They put a C on a baby jersey. Let's get to where the problem started.
Hey Doc, and that's the only point that I was making to Gary, because ball players know ball players, but when somebody is appointed leader, you don't appoint a leader, you earn that. I got that.
Yeah, that's like giving a baby
people in the room know.
Okay, they did that.
Yep.
Okay, they also didn't have to facilitate somebody to help the kid grow. We all know toddlers we played
Yeah.
with. We have to help them grow.
Yeah.
Where was the people to help his growth? He had Doug Williams in the same building with him and never reached out.
Right.
You talk about
but
a
Doc,
problem.
but you know that Doug reached out to him several times, and I learned this many years ago
Oh, yeah.
from Wes Unseld when I asked him to talk to a tremendously talented first-round draft choice to get him straight, and he said, and I know you got to go to break. Wes said, you know what? You got to know whether or not he wants to hear from you. Right now, this kid won't hear from me. He can't hear from him, and it might have been the same circumstance. All right, Donna, take it.
We wouldn't have given him a choice.
Hey,
They
Howie,
gave him
thanks
a
for
choice.
coming on,
We wouldn't
man.
have given him a choice.
I hear you.
Howie, thanks for coming on. And I tell you what, man, take care of yourself. You've been a pleasure to have on.
Anytime, partner.
I got another defensive player on that need to tell Rick Walker that if you scored 36 and you lost, you should have scored 37. Speaking of new personnel, you know, Rick don't know. It's a timeout, and we've taken consideration on that seat over there. We're going to do a recount on the votes if he should be back when we come.
Oh, God, let's not go down that road.
Hey, big boy, good to be with you again, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
brother.
good to see everybody. Good to see you, Gary.
Thanks, man.
Hey, man, this is
Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
man.
Donna, nice meeting you.
A pleasure.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care, man. Thank you.
All right.
We'll be
I'll be
back,
hollering
Tony.
at you.
Tell him we'll go back, Tony.
Huh?
We gotta
Tell
still,
them we'll be back, Tony.
we'll be back.
I thought I told him.
Hey,
I
we're
know
gonna be
you
back.
need to see what we're doing all season.
You
If I
gotta
didn't
put
tell
his
you
cue
fast
card up.
goodbye, if I
Like
didn't
Bob
tell
Hope
you
show.
in the minute, if
Hey.
I didn't tell you we taking a break, you would
Hey,
never
hold
know.
on,
We
hold
giving y'all-
on.
This
Hold
is
up, go ahead.
reality
Howie's got
television.
something.
Cue card up, Howie.
Hi, what are you doing,
Hold on.
Howie?
Hold on. We'll be back.
All right.
I mean, we finished second in the league in defense. And, you know, that was going through everything that, you know, everybody had to say when we were 1-5. But I mean, we finished number 2. I mean, if this is year 1, this is just the beginning with, you know, Coach Rivera, so, and Coach Del Rio. So, I mean, I think it's going to be scary for the years to come. We're not letting our foot off the gas.
It's a lot of things that we can definitely get better at. Yeah, we finished statistically pretty good, but there's still a lot of stuff that we left out there. I mean, you go back and you watch those films. Our standard is our standard, and it wasn't good enough. And I think guys are excited to really break themselves down and break this defense down and see how we can keep getting better. Because this was a new scheme for a lot of guys. A lot of guys were 2-gap guys up front. You know, a lot of guys may have played certain coverages in the past, but you could see week in and week out, we just started understanding more and more how we could fit off each other, how we could play off each other. So then we could keep playing faster and faster and execute what Coach Del Rio is asking us to do.
You know, nothing but hopeful for this organization going forward, especially as a guy that has been on a couple teams, you know, the highs to the lows. You know, I get to recognize, you know, when a good thing is starting to happen, and I can truly recognize this organization is heading in the right direction. Number one thing I've seen, you know, to be specific, and I was with the Seahawks when we went to the Super Bowl. The biggest thing with that team was a standard that was created and maintained. And I think Coach Rivera is doing everything that he can to create a clear standard for this organization. It's something that is tough to build, and we're getting there. And just being able to witness that and see that as I was a part of one before is very recognizable.
You know, Donna, that was a good piece. And I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, you see that Howie stayed with us for a while. They said since I was so forgetful now, I didn't even say we'll be back in a minute. He said he better stay and help the old guy. But at the same time, we getting ready to put the Washington team to
It's
bed.
the Christian thing to do.
Like that one. You know what? What we did, and the reason that was good, Donna, to have that in the end, because one thing they do need to do is take that defense, because that's their building block. And I'd like for you to give me just a minute or so on that. And look what they need to improve, because that is the one facet of the team that you can see now they can become pretty dominant in this league if they continue to improve.
Yeah, Tony, they were kind of like struggling all season long. We talked about the linebacker play. It got a little better towards the end. The secondary still suffered a little bit. I still think they need a corner there. But you all can best talk, you, Howie, James, and Doc, and all of us can talk a little bit more about the defensive front. We know that Chase Young is on one side and Ryan Carrick probably won't be back next year. And then you got Monte Sweat on the other side. I mean, what do you like about the defensive front? We didn't hear much about Allen all season, a little bit, but Payne started to step forward. But I mean, that's one of the bright areas on this team is the defense. But like they said, they can get so much better. You know, these are young guys on that front.
Okay, we're going to talk just a minute about this, because you look at that defense front and how we can tell you about that. But the one thing, if you look on Sunday, all four of those guys that you named, they made one single big play by themselves. You don't look for that. When we had Dexter Manley, Charles Mann, Dave Buss, I mean, these guys, they
Barry
made
Brooks.
Gary Clark, they made 2 or 3 plays every game. So yes, they have something to build on, but they have some building they need to do as well. Let's talk about the teams in the playoff, guys. You look around now, and everybody had Kansas City being there. Look like they're slipping a little bit. Everybody thought because Russell Wilson was having a great year, he's there. Green Bay is a possibility. But what I'm looking at is only one team to me, and I want anybody that wanted to chime in on this. One team is the most complete team there, and I know you'll be surprised when I say this, but when you look at all facets of the game, Tampa Bay may be the most complete team in the league.
I don't think you're far off, and I think, you know, it's kind of like in that movie, Choose Wisely, and I think Tom chose wisely. The biggest question for me was, what would the offense look like? Would it be the Bruce Arians offense of, you know, just chuck it down the field? Protection is not a main priority. You look at the wide receiving core, wherever you throw the football, they have very, very talented people. I thought the Antonio Brown signing was a questionable signing based on what I knew in Oakland. It was bad. And Tom, for whatever reason, had it figured out with him in New England and felt like he could figure it out with him in Tampa Bay. And Tom seems to be right at this point, because he's been on a roll the past 4 or 5 weeks. I think they're a team that had to figure out who they were on offense, from a protection standpoint, from a route running standpoint. It's like Gronk came in, he wasn't in great shape. He wasn't in game shape, and you could see it. He was lumbering the first 4 or 5 games, and now he's in shape, and he looks like, one, he's running routes that he wants to run. 2, if you watch Gronk in protection versus the Washington team, there was one play where he blocked Chase Young by himself. And that is like, you know, I wouldn't sleep for weeks if a tight end blocked me in pass protection. I mean, that shouldn't happen. As you mentioned, some of you young players just need to understand a little bit more. And I think the game slows down for everyone, whether you're a wide receiver, defensive end or not. Their defense is very aggressive. Todd Bowles, I like him a lot. They missed White last week. I think that he's one of the guys that I think is a cornerstone player, and it's rare that you see that at the inside linebacker position, both versus the run and as a blitzer. He's such a dynamic player. You talk about explosive plays, Tony. He makes 2-3 plays a game or game-changing plays. So I think you're right. The question is, can Tampa Bay figure it out? I didn't like their defense last week. I thought they made Heineke look better than he really is. I think Heineke is a quality. I think he's earned a spot, or at least a consideration to be a quality backup guy there, but they need to solve the quarterback position.
JB, just look around the league for me. Tell me the teams you see. Who did you think was going to be an outstanding team in this playoffs? And right now, who do you think will be the final team standing?
You know what? It would be a pure guess on my part, and try not to act like Joe Fan for the prolific teams. You know, it's interesting to me. I look at Baltimore with Lamar, and I look at Kansas City with a terrific quarterback Patrick Mahomes. From this standpoint, last year, and Big Boy, I'd like for you to add on that too. Patrick Mahomes, to me, you know, he never got flustered, no matter how much they were down. And I know they haven't looked particularly good the last few, but I think, you know, this is playoff time. This is big time. I think they're going to rise to the occasion. And Patrick Mahomes is the emotional and spiritual leader of that team. When I looked at Lamar Jackson last year, I think he was expecting so much of him. And you all are talking on the theme of growing and maturing. That's what I was looking at for Lamar, to see whether or not, because the team does take his beat. They do take their cue from him.
He's in year 3.
Hey, Howie,
Yeah.
that's the point that I'm making.
Exactly.
Hey, Howie, let me just be real clear. I was frustrated listening to a bunch of announcers who were saying, this is the hump he's got to get over. This is going to set the mark for him the rest of his career. Howie, he's in year 3. And I'm also a big fan. You know what? Whatever he does, let him do it. And Bill Cowher says, let him run till he can't run anymore.
No question. If that's what you need to win.
The young man, the word would be preternatural. The young man is fantastic, and he got it done. And I think as he rides the rest,
he's younger than Joe Burrow.
Gotcha.
He's in year 3. He won the MVP. What people don't understand, they tend to fear and maybe not like because they don't understand it.
Good point. Good point.
There have been a handful of players, and we could all name them, over the last 20, 25 years, in a league filled with, I think, the greatest athletes on the planet. People talk about basketball players. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that, JB, but you walk down on a football field and it's like NASCAR. I didn't get NASCAR. I mean, I don't get it. You're riding around the track. It's like a circle. It's like a circle. It's like a circle. But when you stand on the corner down at the fence and a car goes by at 205 miles an hour, you kind of get it then. Yeah, I get it. You know, what you really don't understand is how big, how explosive DK Metcalf is, how fast Chase Young is. You just don't get the dimension of it. In a league filled with players like that, Lamar Jackson makes great athletes look average.
Yes. Hey, Doc.
Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders, I mean, there's just a few of them.
But Doc, are they more afraid, maybe not just because of his talent, but we've seen Michael Vick, we've seen Cunningham, we've seen guys come through like that. Are they more afraid that this is short-lived, like RG3, and he may get hurt, may not be that player in a few years? If he has to depend on that speed. But what I'm noticing in the games, I've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks, they're noticing that he can throw the ball as well as run.
Yeah, they don't like his mechanics. He doesn't look what whoever the hell they are would like it to be. But what he does is he's accurate with the ball. He can put it through short windows, tight windows. They love him. The key is that they feed off him. He leads in his own way. I'm so impressed with him. He's not covered like other athletes because our media is biased, extremely biased. But half of them don't even know what they're looking at. The other half know what they like, and he doesn't get covered properly, in my opinion. But what I do love about them is if he can hand that ball off, they're going to be as powerful as that interior run game. They lost 2 Pro Bowlers on their offensive line, and they're in this thing right now. So there's something about what Harbaugh does. They have a will to win. I love them. But Buffalo reminds me of us in the early 80s. And that's the team that I think is frightening because it's new to them. It's like it was new to us. And I will give Tony a lot of credit. We hadn't won anything until Tony McGee got to Washington. And it's a big difference about having leadership and teaching young guys how to do it the right way, and it's how we practice. The way we practice was as hard as some of these guys playing games. And I think Buffalo is one that I love Ravens, but I got my eye on the Bills because they remind me of what we went through in the 80s.
What about their pass rush though, Doc? What about, that's the one thing that I'm afraid of with Buffalo, and that was kind of revealed the other day, and maybe Howard, you want to cue in on this. They don't have the pass rush I think they need. Now they do have the running game. They have the cold weather. They got the big quarterback, got a strong offensive line, got a good defense, but they don't have that domineering pass rush.
They don't have a dominant defense. I think the kid at quarterback is like I said, I think the kid out with the Chargers, out of the gate, and I don't know if you've watched him, Doc.
Yes.
He makes 7 to 10 throws a game, and you go, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
and they listen. There's only one person, one coach that can hold Michael Jordan under 20 points a game. Who is it?
Dean Smith.
Dean Smith. There's only one program that could hold that kid out with the Chargers under 400 yards a game, and that's the Oregon coaching staff. They mishandled him. I mean, he goes to the bowl game, he lights it up. And this kid up in Buffalo, he played in Wyoming, small school, didn't have good wide receivers. And the one thing that people tell you can't coach at quarterback, and you probably heard this, is accuracy. And the knock on him was he completes 52% of his passes. He's not accurate. Tell you what, he's all of 6'5", 6'6", 245, can run like a deer, cannon for an arm. That throw he made going to his left a couple weeks ago, I'm sure you saw it on highlights. Unbelievable throw. It's the same kind of throw that Mahomes makes, only it's 4 miles an hour faster. So he's a scary guy. If they can get their defense kind of, as Tony mentioned, they don't have when you break the huddle, you don't say on Monday morning when you're forming the game plan, we have to stop Aaron Donald. We have to stop Chase Young. There's nobody on Buffalo that you sit there and say, we have to stop him. So they have to create pressure.
Man, I never thought we could have some good thoughts like this. But you hold that thought. When we come back for this break, we'll finish it. Well, I tell you what, it's been very enlightening to be on here with you guys. And you know what, really more than anything, and I wanted us to kick it around a little more than we did, but the insight that you gave, and I think we all kind of look at the end of it, is really when it comes down to who will be in the Super Bowl and who will, it's not always how you play, it's how you play together. And if you really want to be good, you develop something in the beginning and you keep it all the way through. And that's what life is about as well. You guys have to stay safe as well. You know, we've talked football and everything, but we're in a real troubling time right now. And you guys stay safe, keep your family safe. And that's what I tell all you fans. Now, we got 2 or 3 more shows before the end of this year. If I can talk any of these guys into coming back, I will. But at the same time, each and every week, we just want you to know, this is the kind of show we put on. We have fun, we have information, but we have quality. And I never say goodbye to you guys. I always say, in a minute. Thanks, guys.